It's a body that was formed by the government of Kenya in 2008 to promote peace, national cohesion and integration. Join us as we talk to Mr. Hassan Mohamed, the Commission Secretary for National Cohesion and Integration Commission. We are with the Commission Secretary of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. His name is Mr. Hassan Mohamed. Welcome to our discussion today.
Thank you.
Yeah, you remember quite well about 2007 and 2008 and the skirmishes that arose out of the disputed general elections. And it was quite a hard time. I don't know, for NCIC, how has it been since then?
See, NCIC has been part of a process of healing. And that's actually the reason why NCIC was formed. So what the NCIC was supposed to do is deal with those issues which have been identified, which are affecting cohesion and integration. One of them is equality of opportunity. And the other one is the issue of hate speech. So those are issues which NCIC is supposed to deal with. But generally, I think there were many institutions which were established. There are many processes which were begun after the post-election violence so that we can heal. Some of the efforts, of course, have borne a lot of fruit and have been successful, but perhaps there is still room for more improvement.
And as the National Cohesion team, you are charged with the responsibility of making sure that you ensure our cohesion as a country. But the thing that I would really need to know is, how is the cohesion and unity of Kenyans according to your statistics as at now, after especially what took place in 2007?
We did some research in 2015. It's called the Cohesion Index. Anybody who wants can find it on our website. And what we realized is that Kenyans are about 56.6% cohesive. So it means we average. We may say that we have made tremendous progress, but there is still a lot to be done. There are a lot of issues which are still outstanding. There is an issue of ethnicity, which people still talk about. There are perceptions. So there are many issues which I think people have to deal with. There were also some issues which are historical, like in certain areas the issue of development and what. But some of the issues have been addressed. As I said, we carried out a lot of processes. One of the most important processes is the Constitution, which was enacted in 2010, and which changed a lot of things, including devolving resources from the center to the periphery, to the counties. That should be able to equalize development. And then there is also the Equalization Fund, which has been established to help about 14 or 15 counties which had been left behind and which were lagging. So for a few years they are supposed to get that money so that they can. So there are a lot of processes which are going on. The IEBC, at that time the Electoral Commission was reformed, and a new Electoral Commission was put in place. Although I know that the membership also has changed after some complaints some times back. But there are many institutions. The National Land Commission was established. Land issues have been tackled. So there are many processes which were begun and are still going on.
Gauging on what your commission is doing, are we headed in the right direction towards our unity as a country? You know, we believe in unity. Have we learned from the events of 2007, 2008, rather?
Yes and no. Some of the people are very unhappy about what happened in 2007, 2008. But some of the people still feel that when it comes to politics, there is a lot of ethnicization of politics, and so in some way you might say that we have not learned from that, from our problems. But in another way, if you talk to ordinary people, sometimes many of them will talk about peace. They don't want to go back to what happened in 2007, 2008.
How easy do the politicians, how easy or how hard do the politicians especially make your work as the cohesion team?
You see, politicians are are people who are very fond of, they can use any method to get to positions of leadership. If you look at the Waki report on post-election violence, and also you look at the Kriegler report which handled the election issues, all of them have talked about hate speech having contributed to the post-election violence. And so as a commission, we have been asked to tame hate speech. Initially, it was a problem. They use all sorts of excuses. Sometimes they would tell you that we are interfering with their freedom of expression. But luckily, the Constitution has delineated some boundaries such that you can have your freedom of expression, but you cannot use it for certain things like incitement to violence, hate speech, propaganda for war, and all those things. So, and then the law, which was crafted, the National Cohesion Integration Act, asks us to deal with politicians, to people, not only politicians, who spew hate speech. So we have been struggling with politicians. It's a bit difficult dealing with them. They are powerful people. They usually have powerful representation in court and what, but I think to some degree we have tamed that. We now have the problem of social media and the hate speech having metamorphosed and being used by a lot of people on the social media, and it's especially young people who are doing that. So we are also dealing with that issue.
And how do you manage to tame hate speech on the social media especially?
Well, it's very difficult. Sometimes people don't use their names, they use pseudonyms, and you can't also get the cooperation of the institutions like Facebook or Google because where they are, and then some of these people are in different jurisdictions, not in this country, but for those who are in the country, we are trying to deal with them. One of the things we have done is establish a unit here which goes through the social media. We have zeroed down on some of the Facebook accounts which have been used, especially in the run-up to this election, to carry hate speech, and we have asked we have put the administrators on notice that they should be responsible and should rein in the people who are spewing hate speech. We have also taken a number of people to court. I think so far we have about 10 to 12 young people in the last 2 weeks who have appeared in court. So, and then we are creating a lot of awareness also. So I think a lot of people now are getting to know that it is a mistake to use the social media for hate speech.
Mm-hmm. Some people tend to have been asking the question like, why do we need to keep on emphasizing about cohesion, emphasizing about peace, and right now we are even devolved, our government is devolved. As a commission, I believe you have quite an answer on that. Why should we maintain cohesion and unity of our country?
You see, if you don't maintain peace or if you don't maintain cohesion, then you don't have a country. You have fragmented unit, and nobody wants to come to a place where there is no peace. So we talk about peace, although we don't just emphasize peace, because a lot of people ask us, why are you not also emphasizing justice? And we tell them, yes, we are also concerned about justice, and we are concerned, for example, about IEBC and advising them always to make sure that the elections are free, fair, and credible. And
so basically what you are doing to ensure there is justice is through advising the IEBC?
Exactly. That's one of the areas we are doing, but we are also creating a lot of awareness so that people can put pressure on institutions so that there is justice. So that we also, they can also put pressure on their leaders, and also that those leaders act and in a way in which which is legal.
Some people have said that the reason why we have all this kind of problem when it comes to election is because our economy is always dictated by politics, not like in some countries which are said to be dictated by other things, business and investment and other things. So how would we as Kenyans change our mindset from being politically driven to business and institutional driven?
You see, in 2007 when we had the problems, it was realized that the elections are not just the things which drove the conflict. There were underlying issues. And those are the underlying issues which have to be solved so that we can have we can have a better country, we can do elections properly and people can think properly. But those things cannot be done in where there is chaos and what. So you need an economy which is growing, which can take care of, which can take a lot of people out of poverty. We need an economy which is growing, which can take a lot of youth or create a lot of employment for the youth. We want a level playing field for everybody. We want things to be done in a way in which ethnicity does not dictate how you get jobs and what. We want a situation where people who have been marginalized in the past come up. We want a devolution system which is operating well, so that there is more development and there is more money flowing in those rural areas, so that people don't feel that they have been left out. Because if they get enough money in the counties, then they will think that they have not been excluded. You see, this feeling of exclusion or this perception will go away, and therefore a lot of enmity, a lot of hard feelings will be reduced.
We have religious institutions in this country. Do they really cooperate, and how would you need them to cooperate more towards ensuring that there is truth, there is justice and cohesion in this country?
Yeah, I think the religious leaders and all should keep on preaching. That is one, which is of course what they have been doing all these years. But they should also emphasize on justice. They should emphasize on transparency. They should fight vices like corruption and what, they should not cover up some things because of they think that they will be taking on powerful people and whatnot. So they should speak out and talk about the ills which affect the society. They should also not be seen, the leadership of those institutions should not be seen to be leaning towards one side, because once that happens, people will lose confidence in that church or in that religious institution. So they should be neutral and impartial.
You as an institution, what is your promise to Kenyans as far as what you are doing to ensure that there is truth, justice and everything?
We are telling Kenyans that we are doing our bit, because we have a mandate as an institution. We are creating awareness. We are also dealing with the issue of hate speech, because that's our responsibility. We'll preach peace. So as long as the other institutions do their job well, because a lot of things are betightened, and as far as I'm concerned, I think the electoral institution is doing things in the way in which things are supposed to be done.
Mm-hmm. Now, you previously talked about hate speech having transformed, gone into the social media way. What would be your message, especially to young people who often use this particular kind of media?
I'm telling young people, they are very excited about writing about everything. They should know that there are boundaries to some of these things. They can't use the social media to abuse people and whatnot. They should just gauge in the same standard. Would they stand up, for example, to a person from tribe X or whatever, and say certain things? If they can't say it, why do they want to use the social media where they are not being seen, or even their names are not being known, and what, to abuse people or to antagonize others or to cause mayhem? So we are telling them the social media is a very good tool, and a lot of young people have taken to that tool. It's good, it's educative, it can be used to pass good information, but we are telling them, one, don't use the social media first of all to pass fake news, fake information, to pass rumors. You can verify whatever you are passing, and don't use it to pass information which is going to put you in jeopardy. It can take you to court if you pass something which can be termed as hate speech. So be careful during this time. A lot of people have suffered. A number of young men have gone to court and will face the consequences.
We really want to appreciate for your time and for your comments on this particular topic, and we are praying that God enables you to do whatever you are doing. There you have it, the Commissioner Secretary NCIC, Mr. Hassan Mohamed, talking about peace and what the NCIC are doing as far as elections go, and of course ensuring that we have a peaceful country and a cohesive one, united together as Kenyans. A brand has a lot to do with the image and economy of any particular society. Did you know that peace is a major contributor when it comes to creating a positive brand? Why should we maintain peace? Join us as we talk with the Chief Executive Officer of Brand Kenya Board, Ms. Mary Luseka, about this and much more. Welcome. I'm with the CEO of Brand Kenya Board. Her name is Miss Mary Luseka. And we are here to talk about peace and how it contributes to our image as a country. Thank you very much, Miss Luseka, for being with us.
Thank you, Ratemo. Happy to be here.
Wow, great. Now, many people don't understand Brand Kenya Board. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about it and what your mandate is and what you've done and your challenges so far.
Okay. You know, let me start off, first of all, by demystifying what branding is, because people often mistake what branding is versus what marketing is. But at the end of the day, a brand is a promise that is delivered. That you today, Ratemo, you make a promise to me as your friend, and then another day you make another promise, and each time I keep seeing that either you're keeping the promise or you're breaking it. If you keep the promise, then I know Ratemo is reliable. I can trust in him. For him, I have no questions whatsoever. It's the same thing with a brand. You promise something, you must deliver. So when it comes to countries, the effort of branding comes in three parts. The first part being that before you even make the promise, you must understand who you are as a country, your identity, where you're going as a country, what is your vision, what is the promise that then you want to give to the world? And this world is your citizens. You must make sure that you're promising them that they will have quality of life where they are. What about investors? What about tourists? You know, so these are the different promises that countries then make. But all these promises are drawing from their identity, understanding who they are, what they are capable of, and what they are not capable of. And then you go into communicating this, and you communicate it through so many platforms. From TV to even your own citizens. As they engage with the other people from other countries, they are communicating the brand, because people judge them and they say, we see Kenyans are like this, or we see Ugandans are like this, Nigerians are like this. All those are ways in which we communicate to the rest of the world about who we are and our promise to them. And then the harder part is delivery, of that promise. And this is where many countries struggle. You put up very nice, colorful adverts and you say we are this and that. And then when people interact with you, they find a different story. And immediately they begin to rubbish you. And we've seen some examples across the world of brands that are nation brands that have bad reputation. And I don't want to name them because it means I keep extending their bad image. Yeah. But that's how it is. So really, that's the work we do at Brand Kenya.
Mm-hmm. In terms of now delivery, how do you rate us as a country?
I think in delivery, we have made a lot of efforts to get to a level where, like, for example, our promise to investors on ease of doing business, we are doing very well. We are now the third most improved country in the world, 3 years in a row, when it comes to ease of doing business. Now, this is research that is done by World Bank to determine whether truly the promise you made, you're delivering on it. And when they did the research on different touch points that investors engage with, registration of business, how is it to be able to register property, and so on, moving goods from the port to where they're supposed to reach. So they've evaluated us on all those things, and you can imagine in the world we came out as the third most improved for 3 years. So we are putting a lot of energy on delivery, so there's a lot of progress. But back to your first question, we were set up in 2008. And this was a decision that was informed by a task force that the former President Kibaki set up. When he established this task force, his thinking was, we have just come from a very tough situation as a country. That 2008 is where we had the post-election violence. The former President Kibaki, he decided to set up a task force to look into the issues that affect the image of the country. Why is it that our image was so badly dented immediately after that post-election violence? And this task force, when they sat together as members and analyzed the whole situation, they recommended that in order to sustainably manage the image of this country, there was need for a branding agency to be put up in place. And that's how now Brand Kenya Board was formed. And this was a very good step in the right direction, because if you look at the African continent, there are very few branding agencies that are managing country brands. South Africa is the only other one, Ghana and Nigeria. The rest of the countries are really still relying on tourism to manage their image. And tourism is not a sustainable way to manage your image, because a country is wholesome. It goes beyond tourism. So whilst we may have received a lot of fame and success from tourism, or let's say from athletics and from our tea and coffee, you really have to go beyond that, because issues like now what affected post-election have almost nothing to do with those particular areas. Yeah.
Then what is your mandate as a Brand Kenya Board? What specifically do you intend to achieve, your mission and vision?
Our work as Brand Kenya Board is to make sure that we create an image for Kenya, we harness it, and we sustain it into the long term. Three things. In creating an image for Kenya, we don't create it out of our imagination. We spend time analyzing the identity of Kenya. Who are we as a people, as a nation? Where are we going? And you know, we are guided by a Vision 2030 document as to where we are going. We can see up to the year 2030, and in some cases beyond. And now that we know where we are going and we know who we are, what are our capabilities? There are things that we can be able to do based on the advantages we have as a country that are natural and inherent in us. And then there are those capabilities that we can invest in. Yeah? But what is our capability to help us get there? Because before you make a promise, it has to be realistic, you know. So we are able to create this brand for Kenya by doing that work of understanding our identity and where we are going and what our capabilities are. And then we communicate it. Then when it comes to now harnessing it and sustaining it for the long term, we have to work with so many agencies, both government and private sector, to make sure that we live up on the promise. For example, when a tourist is coming from abroad to come to Kenya, the entire journey is part of the brand promise and delivery. The airline, first of all, how easy was it to book a holiday to come to Kenya? Then when they land on the airline, Kenya Airways, how is the experience of Kenya Airways? All this journey, they land at Jomo Kenyatta Airport. What about the port health? What about customs teams? How were they handled? You know, was there transparency, accountability at the airport? When they came out and they eventually went into a taxi, how was the experience in the taxi? What about traffic? What about getting all the way to the hotel? You know, so all those are different players that go towards making sure that the brand promise is delivered. Because it is one thing to say, we have fantastic Masai Mara, come and see these big five that are available in Kenya and nowhere else on African continent in one location. But they have to go through so much before they can get to this Masai Mara. So all that is part of the promise and the delivery. So we have to work with all these players to make sure that the promise is delivered.
Essentially what you mean is that you work with various people, various businesses, industries, institutions, and all the rest to create a brand for the country.
Absolutely.
Now tell me some of the challenges, the major challenges that Brand Kenya Board faces in trying to brand the country.
The first challenge that we do face is people have yet to understand truly what branding is, you know, because when we engage them, we almost look like a policeman, you know, following up and making sure that you better deliver on this promise, you know. Before we are all aligned in as far as understanding branding, there will always be challenges here and there for some stakeholders who may not know how important it is. But over and above that, the most critical brand touch points for this country, which is the airport, the national carrier, in as far as the foreigners are concerned, the internal security. Those are agencies that are very aligned and they understand. The Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Trade and Industry, they have been very supportive. And Foreign Affairs. Those are the key players who really understand the value of branding, and they have been our strongest allies in making sure that our identity is upheld and the brand promise is delivered. But we are still yet to bring on board many more stakeholders, and I think with the support that government has given us recently in as far as improved funding, we can then be able to do much more with more players.
Okay. Now, there is a key issue that I think from my personal point of view would really impact in terms of an image of any particular society or a country for that matter, politics. How does it affect the branding of a country?
Yeah. You know, Ratemo, the first thing that really I can be able to say is branding, and in particular, perceptions have economic consequences. And that is a very important statement for everybody to know, because before I can decide to invest in a particular place or visit a particular place, the first thing is, what is my perception of that place? You know, you can name any country right now. If I name for you France, there must be something that will come into your head in as far as perceptions are concerned, and you can say, if I have money to go to Europe, then I think I will go to France because my perception of France is this compared to how I perceive Germany or how I perceive Switzerland, and so on and so forth. So in the same way, looking now inward into the African continent, whether you're a tourist or you're an investor, the first thing when you look at Africa, it looks like this big mass of a region, and there are already perceptions that people have of African continent. They imagine that Africa is full of disease, corruption, there's political strife, you know, poverty, and those kind of things, which of course the African continent has been getting rid of these challenges over the years, and there's a new Africa, and in particular a new Kenya. So the image that a foreigner may have of Kenya is a combination of what they think of Africa first, and then what they have heard of Kenya, and maybe any experiences they may have had with us. So the role of politics in as far as this whole grand scheme of things is, politics has become so much at the center of Kenya's economy, to the extent that on the positive side, it drives the agenda for many things, because through that political competition, great ideas have been born. You remember the fight that led us to the Constitution, which is a very, very positive achievement in as far as the African continent is concerned. Look at devolution. Devolution is a success, but again driven by politics. However, on the opposite side, which is now the negative side of politics, is that there is some kind of politics that is very tribal driven, yeah, and very selfish, to the extent that politicians would want to leverage on their tribe, or leverage on using attacks on an enemy, yeah? Attacks that are divisive in nature, that then eventually the supporters of these politicians get into a state of mind that they think that they have to act in a particular way, which then eventually is dangerous for us.
You've already talked about people don't understand what branding is and how essential it is for any particular society or institution for that matter. Therefore, I would want to know, what is the relationship between an image and the economy of a country?
As I had mentioned earlier, perceptions have economic consequences. Before anybody can invest somewhere, even at a personal level, before I can invest in you, what is my perception of you in the first place? So there's a direct link, you know, between the economy, how it performs, and the image a country has. And beyond image, the brand is bigger than an image, you know. Image is just perception. And image is what you have heard about, what you may have seen. But that's why for us branding, we look at it beyond that. We look at three things: the identity of a country, the image in as far as how we've communicated it, and then the delivery. Yeah. Because when you have delivery working for you, it sorts out the image issue, you know, and really that's how we see the connection. And in particular, for us, we focus on making sure that when it comes to investment, Kenyans have positive perceptions about their own country and they would want to invest here. And for foreigners, they also would like to invest here compared to other African countries. If it means a place to live, yeah, quality life, then we want Kenyans to believe that this is the place to be, not to imagine that they can go and live elsewhere and live a better life. The same thing goes to consumption of our own goods. That's why we have the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative. We must think that our Kenyan goods are superior because they are superior. That is why you have to go beyond image and look at delivery.
Wow. And then now coming still on the issue of branding a country, what is the role of peace in making sure that we have a good image as a country?
If you look at the hierarchy of needs for any human being, security is at the very, very basic level. Yeah? Safety is a basic need, you know, just like food, clothing, you know, those are basic needs. So there is no form of activity that is of economic importance that can take place in an environment that does not have peace and security, or safety for that matter. And that is why for us, where we have been able to map out that there could be any risks that affect safety, we work with the relevant government entities to try and mitigate it, because then it means the repercussions are major. Repercussions in as far as our image, because investing in cleaning up that image or restoring it after there has been a negative perception is very expensive. And we know that from 2008, what happened. Government had to pump so much money into recovery efforts, recovery for tourism, recovery for investment. There was a lot of money put into it. And we have just come to a point where we have attained that recovery. So the risk that we have identified, elections is one of them. Yeah, we have invested, yeah, in making sure that we communicate to Kenyans. Actually, for the past 1 year or so, we have been working with the Nyumba Kumi initiative, going across the country, making sure we sensitize the youth and prepare them so that they understand the value of protecting the gains our country has made. That is the first thing that we have been doing. So the security agencies have been working with us. And then they themselves, as independent security agencies, have been doing their own work, preparing. Yeah? And I think over time, based on the experience we had on the ground with the Nyumba Kumi initiative, yeah, we realized that Kenyans have come to a level of maturity, that they have been able to differentiate between differences of opinion, yeah, when it comes to politics, and how that it impacts their personal lives. Because in the past, the two were almost intertwined, yeah? That it would lead people to a level of desperation, that they think they have to really put matters in their own hands. That is no longer the case now. And then another positive thing that we have also seen that has helped us minimize that risk of potential violence is the fact that our constitution gave birth to devolution. Devolution has done its 5-year cycle, which again has diminished the risk that people are depending on this one president, whom they must do everything possible for this person to get the position, because they believe that their resources will come from this one person. You see, now that has been diminished. We now have county governments. Everybody knows you go to your local area, power is in the hands of the people, yeah? Resources are at your local area. You put your local team into, you hold them to account. So that system of governance, where now, even though we are still a unitary state, that this devolution of power, it has again minimized the risk. Yeah. So those are some of the positive things we've seen. And then lastly, the other thing that has minimized for us that risk of potential violence is the fact that we had primaries. Primaries is a new thing that had never happened before in Kenya's politics. In fact, even on the African continent, it's a unique thing. It was very exciting. All the kind of leaders that would ordinarily be rowdy, they don't have a manifesto, they are using tribal politics to get people ahead. Now they had to compete with their very own counterparts to see who is going to be the best. And Kenyans selected. So there was a lot of weeding out rogue kind of leaders, you know, until eventually now there's a crop of leadership that is much more at a higher level. Yeah.
Now, let me just go back a little bit to 2007, 2008 post-election violence. How was our image before that time? Because you are talking about right after that, it was really spoiled. But you are already saying that right now we've attained it back, we've gained it back again. How was our image before that? Did you do some analysis?
Yes, there's quite a lot of studies that we do. We do nation branding audits every 2 years. In fact, our latest research we did was of 2016. Now, before 2008, if you look at all the country brand studies that had been done, and there's one very popular one you can be able to access online. It's called the Country Brand Index. In fact, if you just Google Country Brand Index, you will get the report. And you can go all the way as far back as before 2008. Kenya has always received very positive reviews through that particular study. And that's a study that is done of people who have interacted with Kenya, from tourists to foreigners to people who live here to diplomats and all that. And they give feedback. And we were doing very well. Kenya was seen as the haven for peace. All the multinationals, in their minds, they believed that the headquarters for Africa must be in Nairobi. And that is why we have even the UN situated here. And our UN headquartered here is a very, very big deal, you know, because on African soil, there's no other place where UN is headquartered. And UN doesn't go to places that are unsafe. Yeah. So we were preferred. And when it came to now 2008, it was a surprise, not only even to Kenyans, it was also a surprise to the world. But what could have gone wrong that this instability could have taken place? And whilst it was a very short period of just about a week or two where there was this post-election violence, and even though there were small spots within the country, their impact was huge. The impact was huge because now the image of the country had been so dented to the extent that people began to look at us and put us in a box. And I really want to say put us in a box is because the research that was done by the Future Brand on this Country Brand Index immediately after post-election, you can see they have put us in the same box with Iraq, with Somalia, with the Congo. Even you as a Kenyan, when you ask yourself, can we really be in the same box as those kind of countries, you know, that are almost failed states? You know, we are not a failed state, but you can see it is image. Yeah, it's not the reality. But we led ourselves into that trap where people can even perceive us like that. And I'm really happy that our government took measures immediately to address that situation. And it has taken us a while to recover. You can imagine 10 years is where now we have recovered, and we never want to go back there again.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're talking about how we were affected, how much it costed us to just bring back that image, and then you've seen how politicians are. Based on your own view, are you seeing politicians learning that there is something like an image that is being spoiled in case we go wrong?
Well, we must always continue to sensitize the public and encourage them to see the light in the fact that the image of the country has economic consequences which will impact us, each and every one of us. But I feel that over the past 10 years, a lot of work has gone at the grassroots level to sensitize wananchi. And Kenyans are now better enlightened. And we all experienced it. Nobody wants to go back there, you know. And because Kenyans are now enlightened, any leader who stands on a podium to try and pit one community against the other, you have seen how Kenyans are the first people to shun that leader down. So that is the first measure, because the system then self-corrects. Then the second measure is that we now cannot allow hate speech. It is against the law. Anybody who has attempted to have hate speech has been put behind bars. And they've had to apologize to Kenyans, you know. So it's a mix of interventions where the system is self-regulating by way of public ridicule for anybody who tries to take them back, but also the laws are in place and they are being enforced. We can see it in practice. Just the other day, a leader who spoke some very negative things to incite wananchi was was arrested. So we take it very seriously. Yeah.
What would be your message to Kenyans and making sure that we maintain the brand of our country, Kenya, and that we make sure that our economy continues to grow, investors coming to invest, and we are scaled higher at the international scene.
My message to Kenyans would be that I would like to urge Kenyans to look at how our economy has been growing over the past so many years. And our biggest challenge had been that every time we come to an election, there is a small dip in our economic growth. This year, we don't want that dip at all. And the best way you can help us make sure that we don't have that dip in as far as our economic growth, which right now we have been doing very well at 5.6%. We would like to encourage everyone to, first of all, appreciate the progress that Kenya has made. This progress that we are making, this 5.6% growth that we are having, all these investors that are coming in, all these foreign organizations that you can see holding conferences here, is because they believe in us. And we have shown them that we have a huge potential. So let us first of all appreciate that progress and then safeguard it. And in safeguarding, all we ask Kenyans is, when somebody says something negative about your country or about your neighbor, you need to be the first person to bring them to sobriety. Sobriety to a level that we not only engage on issues and we compete on ideas and issues, and not to a level where we are fighting with each other. That is really what we can request you. And then the most important thing being that you participate in nation building. You can only destroy that which you're not part and parcel of building. Participate in nation building, play your role every single day, because all these gains we have made are part of your hard work, your daily hard work at the grassroots level. So let's join hands together and compete on ideas.
To the politicians?
Now to the politicians. I know that you have learned your lesson over the years. Kenyans now no longer condone hate speech, and we are very happy about the dynamics that have taken place in as far as the political arena is concerned. Continue to push your ideas, even if you are on the opposition side. Continue to push your ideas, and some of them will be accepted and implemented, because at the end of the day, it is for our own good. And we believe that even as a politician, you are coming in because you want to make Kenya better. So a loss does not mean you don't have a role to play. You continue to play a role.
Wow, thank you very much. And of course, there you have it, Miss Mary Luseka, the Chief Executive Officer, Brand Kenya Board, speaking about how peace contributes to our brand as a country. I hope that you have learned much from our interview today, and that you'll be doing your best to make sure that you sustain this image that really costs us a lot in terms of finances. It costs us our time and everything, our resources. So let's try to maintain the peace that we have as a country, and let's try to maintain our brand at the international scene. Thank you very much.